There are many mysterious things and people in this world. Whether it is paranormal activity or natural occurrences, there's always something creepy or unusual going on. Many strange happenings take time to fully unearth. Man left ashore. September 8, 1863. A man was found ashore on the beach of Sandy Cove with both his legs amputated. The man was taken in by the local Acadians who gave him the name Jerome. He was mute. The locals helped him out of Christian charity, but due to the lack of communication and his severe disability, all his decisions were made for him, and he was unable to speak for himself. Jerome lived for 42 years with the Dedier-Comeau family. Zerbeth Dedier took care of him and nursed him, and he became an honorary member of their family, even watching the Comeau children grow up. His life with them was simple, for his amputation made it impossible for him to be independent or to do manual work most men did. He would wake up, stare out the window, or go into the sun in the summer and eat meals with the family and sleep. Jerome passed away in 1912 and was buried in the Catholic cemetery of Medigan, along St. Mary's Bay in Nova Scotia. Decades passed and various individuals claimed they knew who Jerome was. Many believed the man to be Italian, perhaps a mutilated nobleman who kept his silence to save himself from political rivals. Another theory was that he was an Italian naval officer, injured on board and cruelly abandoned by his crewmates. Those who cared for him claimed he would sometimes utter Colombo and Trieste, further proving that he was Italian. Some, however, believed him to be Jeremiah Mahoney, an Irish immigrant who emigrated from Ireland to escape his family. Theories were abundant. Another theory claimed him to be Gamby. The frozen man Gamby was found in 1859 on a logging trail in New Brunswick and cared for in the parish of Chippen. His legs were amputated due to gangrene in the spring of 1861. The taxpayers of the village paid to have the man removed in 1863 because caring for him was too expensive. They believed Gamby to be Italian. The sequence of events and similarities in the story makes many people believe Gamby and Jerome to be the same person. Jerome never spoke enough to reveal the truth about himself. The ocean has served to be a place of intrigue, terror, and fascination for millennia. It is the great unknown. The only thing we truly know is that we don't know most of what is hidden away in the impossible to traverse depths. Lost artifacts from ancient civilizations, proof of alien technologies, missing shipwrecks, and the forgotten bodies of those lost at sea under inexplicable circumstances may all very well be floating in the internal abyss of the seas, concealed from our sight. Are we fated to discover more of our oceans in the future, or are we fated to never find out the truth at all? Only time will tell. The lost land of Petite. Hidden somewhere in the jungles of southeast Peru is a lost land believed to reside somewhere east of the Andes. The existence of the lost land of Petite was only discovered recently as researchers in 2001 uncovered the written notes and descriptions provided by Andres Lopez in his missionary reports that were stored at the secured archives of the document was believed to have been written somewhere around the 1600s and described a large hidden city that was rich in gold, silver, and jewels, and was located out in the middle of a tropical jungle that the natives referred to as Petite. Although these notes have been in the possession of the Jesuits for several hundred years, it is believed that the Catholic Church worked to conceal the location of the ancient city for reasons not entirely known. Andres Lopez brought the existence of the city to the attention of the Pope during his time, and still the reports were hidden away and never publicized. Later that year, archaeologists would find startling comparisons to the believed locations of the reported city, and the discovery of ancient Inca military presence around the region of Beni and the Madre de Dios rivers. These researchers would then put forward a hypothesis that believed it to be possible that the city of Petite is located somewhere in the Amazonian jungles nearby this region, as ancient Inca expeditions were common in that area. Today, the true location of the lost city is still not entirely known, but many documents and reports have surfaced surrounding these lost cities of gold hidden away in dense jungles. This could very well mean that until archaeological expeditions could travel into these regions, we may never uncover the preserved civilizations of the ancient past. Parmod Sharma's story. Parmod Sharma was born on the 11th of October 1944 in India's Bisawali village, At age 2.5, he started telling his mother to no longer cook his meals as he had a wife in Moradabad, a city that was 99 miles in the northeast of Bisawali, who would cook his meals. At age 3.5, he started giving detailed accounts of his past life and businesses he owned and operated with his family members. He particularly mentioned a shop called Mohan Brothers that sold biscuits and soda water, insisting that he was one of the Mohan brothers. Parmod had been a rich trader in his previous life and constantly complained about his family's less rosy financial situation. He hated curd and advised his family not to eat it, mentioning that he had become very sick after eating it in his previous life. He also disliked being submerged in water, which relates to his report of having passed away in a bathtub. He claimed to have been married and had 1 daughter and 4 sons, whom he was eager to see. He constantly asked his parents to take him for a visit to Moradabad, and they refused. But his mother promised to take him after he learned to read. News of Parmod's recollections reached the Mira family in Moradabad and visited him in Basali, which fit the details of his account as they owned several businesses, including one which sold biscuits and soda water. They recognized the statements given by Parmod as matching the life of their late brother Parmanand Mira, who was also their business partner. Parmanand had passed away in 1943. He had gorged on curd and subsequently developed a chronic gastrointestinal illness and then appendicitis and peritonitis, which led to his demise. He had tried naturopathic bath treatments and had been given a bath shortly before his death. Parmod, accompanied by his father, went to visit the mayors, and he instantly recognized most of them, and he also recognized that his office had been changed. Globsters, oftentimes it is no surprise to find a number of strange ocean life washing up on the shores of beaches from around the world. Additionally, many of these strange species coming from the ocean can range in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from dolphins to whales to sharks and even to swarms of floating jellyfish all across the beach. Interestingly enough, there are a number of cases in which impossible to understand species have washed up on beaches that are referred to as globsters. Globsters are described as being large white globs of animals washed up that have been reported as sometimes still moving or completely dead. This has led to many referring to these large masses such as that of different kinds of sea monsters, though researchers quite usually believe they're nothing more than a form of mistaken identity. One of the most convincing cases, however, comes from an encounter of a globsters referred to as El Tronco. Back on the 24th of October in 1924, a strange and unexplainable monster washed ashore after witnesses combing the beaches claimed to have seen an even more impossible to explain scenario playing before them. Out in the waves close to the shore, there appeared to be 2 large killer whales working in unison to attack an even larger creature in the ocean that not a single person standing watch could explain. Similar to that of an elephant, a thick white fur wrapped around its entire body similar to that of a polar bear and the bloated and massive body of a small whale. Given the massive trunk extending from the face of the white furry beast, many gave the creature the name of Trunco and believed it to be a strange monster unknown by researchers of the time. Despite the body rotting away on the beaches for more than 10 days with a wide variety of people visiting the site, not a single scientist or researcher went to the body, and none of it was preserved for future study. This has led many to believe that perhaps the creature was nothing more than a large whale and a case of mistaken identity. Given the fact that nothing could have been preserved of the location, however, it is hard to assume that the creature was a case of mistaken identity, and the witnesses that recount the tale say overwhelmingly so that wasn't the case. Unfortunately, it appears that we may never know what the creature really looks like and where it came from, marking it as an impossible to explain ocean mystery. Today, many cryptid websites on the internet have removed the Trunco creature and accepted the rather half-hearted explanation of an old bloating carcass as the cause of the sighting, despite numerous witness claims more than detailing the strangeness of the creature. Radar Discovery Alcatraz's structures were first constructed as a military outpost, hoping to be a line of defense from any potential invading forces. Few people know of its original role, and many aspects of the island's early history are overshadowed by its more recent past. However, in 2019, a group of archaeologists discovered evidence of hidden military structures beneath the federal penitentiary to create a map of the underground regions below the island. What they found was amazing, an incredibly preserved fortification dating back to the 19th century. The discovery adds evidence to the idea that although most of Alcatraz's 19th century fortifications were demolished in the early 20th century, some of it still lies intact, effectively working as a time capsule to the long-since-gone period of Alcatraz's early history. An archaeologist from Bimington University stated, "These remains are so well preserved and so close to the surface, they weren't erased from the island, they're just right beneath your feet." Before mid-17th century America, the island that would eventually house the infamous Al Capone was little more than a stretch of desolate land in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. That eventually changed when the U.S. stationed the island as a defensive outpost, leading the island to have several structures erected on top of it. Due to its remote and isolated nature, it was difficult for the island to stay modernized in regards to weapons and artillery. Towards the dawn of the 19th century, Alcatraz's equipment was already obsolete, leading to the dissolvement as a military outcrop. Once the now famous penitentiary was built in the 20th century, the old fortifications were believed to have been totally replaced. However, these new findings state that some of the original buildings are still preserved beneath the island's current surface. Using clever radar technology that measures the wavelengths of signals that bounce back from underground, researchers were able to peer into the subterranean world below and discovered that a rich complex of underground structures has been lying hidden for centuries. This method of archaeology means that teams can easily map out areas without the need to disturb the ground or potentially damage any finds that may lie below. Without any manual excavation, the team of this 2019 study were able to find a labyrinth of subterranean structures. These safe ways of underground mapping are vital for sensitive research areas such as Alcatraz. John Martini, author of the study as well as an Alcatraz historian, stated, "Have long suspected. On an isolated island, there are only a number of places you can construct. Could there be more secrets to uncover underneath the surface of Alcatraz? What other government work could have been lost to the past? Below the surface, Alcatraz is still full of mysteries. There's still a whole lot to be learned." The world is a wondrous and confusing place. The advancement of science and history and expansion of our knowledge of the Earth gives us a more comprehensive view of our world than ever before. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious discoveries. Alaska woman finds memory card with chilling footage. What would you do if you randomly found a memory card labeled homicide on the ground near your grocery store? For one woman in Alaska, she opened it and helped police find the suspect before they even knew that there was a victim. Inside the memory card were photos and videos detailing a chilling event that had occurred the month prior. After the citizen turned in the card, a victim was found near a highway south of Anchorage. The Samaritan quickly called the police and submitted the evidence, which led to the arrest of 48-year-old Brian Stephen Smith. The authorities praised the woman for finding the card and calling it in, as they would have otherwise not solved the case as quickly as they did. The memory card stored 39 photos and 12 videos of the event. The woman in question was recorded in a hotel room while a man carried out the attack. The videos show that the man spoke with a foreign accent and that the woman also unsuccessfully fought back and tried to scratch at his wrists. The timestamps of these pictures show that the woman and perpetrator were in the room at 1 a.m. on September 4, 2019. The following images were taken a few hours later and show the woman wrapped in a white blanket on a luggage cart just outside the hotel in the parking lot. The final photographs were taken in early September and show the woman in the back of a truck. 2 days after police received the memory card, the woman's remains were discovered along the Seward Highway, about 20 miles south of Anchorage. The police first needed to determine whether the information on the memory card was staged or whether an actual crime had taken place. They believed the unidentified woman on the tape and the victim they found were the same but still needed to confirm her identity. Detectives investigating the memory card happened to recognize the man's South African accent. having contacted Smith in previous investigations. The authorities quickly gathered more evidence against Smith. He had booked a room at Town Place Suite by Marriott in Anchorage for 2 days, from September 2nd to the 4th. The carpet from the hotel matched the one in the photos and videos. He also owns a black truck, and his phone data places him near the victim's site within minutes of the photo's timestamp. Within days, Smith was arrested and taken into custody. Thanks to a strange as chilling discovery and good thinking, police were quickly able to solve this dreadful crime and put a man behind bars. The unsolved disappearance of Thomas Nuzzi's family has been searching for him for the last decade after he mysteriously vanished on June 18, 2001. He was last seen by friends 3 days prior and was finally reported missing after failing to show up to work in Bethel, Alaska on the 19th. The last image of him was taken on the 18th at a gasoline station near the Super 8 Hotel on Minnesota Drive in Anchorage, where he was staying. Authorities found a receipt that showed Nuzzi had purchased chips, soda, 2 lighters, and a pack of cigarettes at the gas station at 9:47 p.m. He was never seen or heard from after this. Police believe Nuzzi was on foot when he disappeared, since his Jeep Cherokee was found 12 miles outside of the city at the Alpunglo ski area in Chugach. Apparently, on June 15th, a woman and another man attempted to break into Nuzzi's car at the hotel, as reported by a security guard. The woman was also captured on the surveillance camera standing next to Nuzzi at the gas station. On his last known day, the same couple was once again spotted breaking into the Jeep. This time, the man was successful and drove off with the car. The following day, the day Nuzzi was reported as missing, a housekeeper of the hotel saw a man on Nuzzi's hotel room floor. When she came back later in the afternoon, the same man was sitting on the bed. He was not Nuzzi, and she made him leave the room. Police consider the couple as persons of interest to the case but have not been identified or seen since. The woman is small, about 5 foot 2 inches and 105 pounds, Caucasian with medium long dark hair, and possibly in her they are suspected of having used Nuzzi's phone, since all the recent calls on his phone were traced to unknown numbers. Many of the numbers are connected to motels, pages, and a halfway house. Nuzzi's nephew called back every single call, missed, dialed, or received, but none of the people who answered him had ever heard of his uncle before. Despite an extensive search for clues by authorities, they were unable to turn up any evidence or leads to Nuzzi's disappearance. He lived a quiet and reclusive life, working as a registered nurse and often traveling around the state for his employment. Because of this, he did not even have a permanent address and opted to live out of hotels. He has never been seen since that day, and his case remains unsolved. The mystery of Marion Lynn Carver. In 2004, Marion Lynn Carver took a vacation cruise liner from Seattle, Washington to Vancouver, British Columbia. She boarded the ship on August 27th, but was last seen by her cabin attendant the next day. She never got off at any of the 4 stops along the way and did not board her return flight home to Boston, Massachusetts. She has been considered missing since then, despite years of her family searching for Carver. Was a 40-year-old single mother to 1 daughter. She had secretly booked a celebrity cruise trip for herself and left without telling any of her family members. Her father first reported her missing on September 7th after her daughter called him asking for her mother's whereabouts. The police only realized she had left for a cruise after looking into her credit card records. The cruise line never reported her missing despite constant memos from her attendant. Had not been slept in on the first night, but was ordered to ignore it and clean the room as usual. He submitted 5 notices to his supervisor about Carver's absence, but was told that someone else would handle it. The supervisor gathered Carver's belongings, but did not attempt to notify police or search for the missing passenger. The cruise line only reported Carver's disappearance after her father reached out to them. By then, the supervisor had already donated most of her possessions and only kept her purse and documents in storage. As per the cruise line's regulations, missing passengers must be reported, so Celebrity Cruises immediately fired this employee. Nonetheless, the cruise line was unhelpful in the search for Carver. They claimed her disappearance was most likely due to jumping overboard and did not attempt to investigate. It took nearly a month from her first disappearance for the family to learn that she had booked a cruise and an additional 3 days for the voyage, to confirm that she was a passenger. Despite pleas from the father and personal investigators, Celebrity Cruise barely helped in the investigation. They claimed to delete surveillance footage after a few days, even though they kept it for 30 days. When the father asked for it, they ended up accidentally deleting the footage. He ended up hiring private investigators to try and figure out what happened to his daughter, spending over the next few years nearly $75,000. Carver's father had so much frustration with the investigation and Cruise Line that he ended up suing the company over her disappearance and lack of action. He founded the International Cruise Victims Organization in 2006 and constantly lobbied Congress to enact laws and regulations to hold cruise ships responsible for accidents and loss of life. He became the leading campaigner for cruise ship safety, initiating the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act of 2010. The Ronald Wilson Reagan Public Policy Award from the U.S. Department of Justice in 2017 for his work. Despite all of his hard work and dedication to the safety of cruise ship passengers, he never learned the truth of what happened to his daughter. Carver's father died in December 2019 at 83 years old, with her case still unsolved. But what do you make of these disappearances? The group Anonymous recently sent out a message warning people and officials that the release of genetically modified mosquitoes may not be the best idea. Members of the group said that there's definitely advantages with modified mosquitoes. For example, they're said to reduce the spread of infections, and that these new mosquitoes will mate with existing wild mosquitoes. And because their genetic makeup is different, it means that their offspring won't survive. And that wild populations that are considered of pests will decrease dramatically. But the group also noted that these Frankenstein creatures may pose an undetected threat to not only humans, but also Mother Nature, saying that they may develop new unknown pathogens that could be harmful to humans. The project wants to reduce the Aegypti species, saying that they are responsible for most of the spreads, and that residents complain about them being pests. On May 1st, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency granted an experimental use permit to Octocon, the company behind the mosquitoes, to release them into the wild. While officials have said that this is fine and that they won't have effects on people, residents close to the release area aren't sure how to feel about this, with Anonymous saying that these genetically modified mosquitoes could damage the ecosystem and may actually create a super durable hybrid mosquito that is resistant to insect repellent. According to Oxitec's website, the company said that when first releasing these mosquitoes in Brazil, they received positive results. The company has also said that the government has signed off plans which will allow them to release these mosquitoes in Texas. Researchers know that it's only female mosquitoes that bite humans because they rely on blood to produce their eggs. So the idea behind the release is that the modified males will produce with the wild females. The males who are genetically modified will carry a protein that will stop the female offspring before they reach maturity. The current model that's been revealed is that over 750 million modified mosquitoes will be released over a 2-year period. Anonymous members, along with local residents around Florida Canes, have voiced their concerns about the release of these mosquitoes, with 237,000 people signing a change petition. The petition reads as follows. Right now, a British company named Oxitec is planning to release genetically modified mosquitoes into the fragile environment of Florida Keys in Texas. The company wants to use the Florida Keys in Texas as a testing ground for these mutant bugs. Even though the local community in Florida Keys has spoken, we even passed an audience demanding for more testing. First, Oxitec is trying to use a loophole by applying to the FDA for an animal bug patent. Now the hot potato has passed the EPA, and Oxitec is at it again. This profit-driven biotech company wants to release more than 15 million genetically modified mosquitoes per week, and this is into both Florida and Texas. These GMO mosquitoes could pose major risks to fragile ecosystems, like the Florida Keys in Texas, and may pose risks to public health and safety. Once again, Oxitec wants to treat people like human experiments. Even though the EPA doesn't have enough information about the environment, health, and even indirect economic impacts of these insects, it might give Oxitec the green light. Over the past several years, we all raised our voices to help stop what could have been the first release of millions of genetically modified mosquitoes in the United States. But now we need to stop this non-consensual experiment again. Tell the EPA to not approve the GMO mosquitoes. We do not consent to being a human experiment, and we do not want GMO mosquitoes. Over 30 local physicians have created a petition to ask for more evaluation of the risk of this GMO mosquito and the possible development of antibiotic-resistant risk as a result of this experiment. These GMO mosquitoes are created with E. coli bacteria and other ingredients. This is very premature technology with very little information. A lot of questions need to be answered. The CDC notes that Oxitec trials are not set up to test for disease reduction. If the experiments go forward, there would still be enough non-GMO mosquitoes in the environment, including in people's homes and backyards, to spread diseases. Even the head of the Cayman Islands, which recently rejected GMO mosquitoes, has said that GMO mosquitoes will not be a solution for fevers that pose a risk to human life. This is a medical intervention without consent. We need real solutions, not GMO mosquitoes. Oxitec applied to the FDA and it took years to decide, and now a huge, overwhelming opposition has spoken. Now Oxitec applied the mosquitoes as a pesticide with very little information on the release to the public and to scientists for doing a proper evaluation. British biotech Oxitec has not been very transparent. In the data including reduction of percentage of mosquitoes, survival rates, lifespan, and more females per percentage. This is very concerning because in the new experiment, we are talking over 50 million mosquitoes per week, 7 days a week, which will equal to billions of geomosquitoes between Florida and Harris County, Texas. The data of the government have came in where these geomosquitoes has been released is very different from what Oxitec has been claiming. A lot of questions need to be answered, including the solid evidence of the environmental effects in nature, public health, and safety. We need to stop the experiment. If it goes forward, it could mean that these mutant mosquitoes could be released at any point against the wishes of locals and the scientific community. We need to make sure that the EPA does not approve Oxitec's patent. Nearly all experiments with genetically modified crops have eventually resulted in unintended consequences. Superweeds more resistant to herbicides, mutated in resistant insects, and also collateral damage to ecosystems. A recent news story reported that the monarch butterfly population is down by half, and this is in areas where Roundup-ready GMO crops are doused with ultra-high levels of herbicides that wipe out the monarch's favorite plants. What about our native species of Florida keybats? Are there any studies being conducted to see if these mosquitoes will harm the native bat species? Why would we not expect genetically modified insects, especially those that bite humans, to have similar unintended negative consequences? So what do you make of this announcement? And do you think they should be releasing genetically modified mosquitoes into the United States? Did you know that more than 80% of our oceans are unmapped, unobserved, and unexplored? With so much that we do not know, the ocean remains a prime spot to unleash our curiosities and expand what we know. So today we'll be taking a look at some of our ocean discoveries. Great white shark versus giant squid. What comes to mind when you think of the scariest creature in the oceans? Did a great white shark swim right in? Well, you would not be wrong. They certainly can be frightening. Also known as the largest predatory fish on the planet, they boast an average length of 15 feet and can weigh up to a massive 5,000 pounds. With a powerful torpedo-shaped body whose tail sends them speeding through the waters, they with their 300 serrated and triangular teeth. However, they might not be the all-fearsome predators you think they are. In fact, evidence suggests that they could even be prey to some larger sea creature out there. That is exactly what a newly released study proves. As scientists believe that somewhere out there in the large Pacific Ocean, these great white sharks are being attacked by massive squids. How so? By the large scars and sucker marks found on the sharks. Although this might sound too similar to a classic prehistoric animal battle movie, there is documented research that such encounters have occurred. They mostly take place in Guadalupe Island near the Baja California coast. In the examination of 14 great white sharks during a span of 5 years, most of them developed unique scars on their heads and trunks before they reached full adulthood. Such wounds suggest that a squid tried to defend itself from the shark. Because of their proximity to the volcanic island, which is otherwise known for being a feeding site for the most apex of predators, encounters between sharks and cephalopods are not unique. However, there are not too many documented interactions between great whites and large squids, which makes these findings especially mysterious. It is definitely not impossible either. In the region of great white shark territory, there are several squid hotspots with a huge variety ranging from foot-long neon flying squids to giant squids that can grow to a huge length of 46 feet. This sheds plenty of light upon the fact that squids play a big role as prey for adult great whites. What is even cooler is the depth at which these fights are taking place. Not only are they deep, but they are also taking place in the twilight zone, which is the layer of water that even sunlight cannot penetrate, at about 650 to 3,300 feet deep. In the end, scientists have yet to find direct evidence that proves that giant squids were the ones that caused the sucker marks and scarring. However, they do believe that the culprits are likely the jumbo squid, the neon flying squid, and the giant squid. No matter what one thing is for sure, these marks are certainly indicative of an extremely aggressive encounter between predator and prey. If the squid is strong enough, then the suction power of their arms and tentacles can deform the shark dermal denticle structure and cause open wounds. It seems that the great white shark may not be the most unchallengeable sea creature out in the ocean. Ancient structures below Lake McDonald. Imagine an underwater civilization lost to time and mystery. Did the city of Atlantis pop into your mind? At the heart of many books and movies lies this island, which was once home to a great naval power that disappeared below the surface, never to be seen again. Though the legitimacy of Atlantis may be a mystery forever, it certainly does not mean that there are no real-life lost ancient cultures in the ocean just like it. In fact, one such lost civilization may have just been rediscovered in the depths of Lake McDonald in Ontario, Canada. On one fateful day, a group of divers decided to participate in a submarine project. By the time they reached a depth of 40 feet, they found a series of oddly shaped structures. At first glance, researchers hypothesized that they were a type of perched erratic, that a bunch of glaciers transported thousands of years ago at the end of the last ice age. However, upon closer observation, the divers noticed that the structures had far more detail worth looking into. That prompted several more scientists and geologists to conclude that the rock assembly was made up of 7 gigantic monoliths made by man and not by nature. But how exactly did these rocks get here? Is there a chance that they could have in a perfect structure by chance? To find the answers, the experts turned to maths as statistics. As predicted, the numbers only reported that even rocks forming such a structure were almost impossible. To have 7 rocks be situated in such a position was practically unthinkable. So one thing was for certain, this was no work of Mother Nature. Knowing that, scientists decided to look for the next obvious signs of human involvement in possible tool use or other decorative images. They first found a layer of sediment which indicated that no human had touched the rocks in quite a long time. So when did the last humans touch these stones, and who were they? How did they manage to haul these giant objects and put them in such a position? For the many visitors who often visited the Halliburton Forest where the structure was, they noted how aesthetically pleasing the rocks almost seemed to be. For them, it almost looked quite similar to an Arctic inukshuk. To try to find more answers, researchers tried to draw upon the history of the land. Thousands of years ago, they discovered that the areas had suffered bouts of constant droughts. Because the land was very arid and dry, the waters of the Great Lakes were actually around 50 meters lower. That certainly happened to Lake McDonald as well. In conclusion, biologists determined that the lake was home to ancient glacial relic lake trout that had survived multiple bouts of glaciation. It was not always a lake either. It turns out that it was actually part of an ancient river system that had funneled glacial meltwater south into the once existing Lake Agassiz for millennia. There is no doubt that many questions and mysteries still swirl around these unique underwater structures. However, we do know that ancient cultures are most likely more advanced than we give them credit for. Perhaps they might just point to evidence of an era in humankind's history that we have never yet discovered. Zombie greenhouse gases in the Arctic. Climate change is only increasing in speed, and part of that may be due to the fault of the Arctic Ocean. Did you know that each year, millions of tons of organic carbon and methane in the area thaw and ooze out to the surface? The carbon tied up in the organic matter and methane is found trapped in the subsea permafrost, which is also frozen sediment that became covered by seawater at the end of the Paleolithic Ice Age. Even though this zombie greenhouse gas could really impact the environment, it is hard to gather data on how fast the gases are leaking because the sediment is in such a remote and inaccessible area. However, two emerging theories have resulted. One of them, and arguably the scariest of the two, is that this greenhouse gas reservoir is a ticking time bomb that is bound to explode and suddenly spew into the atmosphere, which would trigger a climate change disaster. The other tamer one is that instead of an explosion-like release, the gases will continue to ooze into our atmosphere as they have for centuries. Humans, however, have the capability to make the situation worse by speeding up the rate of release. At most, the acceleration would take place over several more centuries and not in the course of a few decades or years. Still, it is pretty frightening just to hear about how much zombie greenhouse gases are lurking beneath the surface. In attempting to capture a comprehensive picture of the ecosystem, they came to the startling conclusion that the permafrost holds about 60 billion tons of methane and 560 billion tons of organic carbon. On top of that, about 140 million tons of carbon dioxide and 5.3 million tons of methane escape from that permafrost into the atmosphere every year. In terms of comparison, that is almost equal to the carbon footprint of the entire country of Spain. From that data, experts arrived at the conclusion that over the next 300 years, the rate of greenhouse gas emissions from the subsea permafrost is only likely to substantially increase if carbon emissions from human activity continue to function as normal. Though more research is likely to change everything, there is no mystery about it that we as humans are linked to this permafrost below the cold Arctic Ocean. The part we play in it can impact the entire planet as we know it. But what do you make of these three interesting ocean discoveries? NASA Administrator Bill Nelson was just interviewed, and he didn't hold back about his thoughts on mysterious crafts and the bigger questions that people ask. Like, are we alone in the universe? Has life already made its way to planet Earth? And how do we explain the mysterious crafts that have recently been detected? NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said the following about the release of Navy sightings of mysterious aircrafts. Have received the classified version as well. I've seen the report. It said basically what we thought, and that's that we don't know the answer for what those Navy pilots saw, and those Navy pilots knew that they saw something. They tracked it, locked their radar onto it, and followed it. It was suddenly moved from one location to another, and what the report does tell us is that there's been over 140 of these sightings. So naturally what I asked our scientists to do is to see if there's any kind of explanation from a scientific point of view, and as of right now I'm waiting for their reports. He was then asked about his feelings and what they were, and if he could explain them. He said the following: not only reading the report, but 3 years ago I talked to the Navy pilots, and this was when we were briefed in the Senate Armed Services Committee. My feelings is that there is clearly something there. It may not necessarily be extraterrestrial, but if it is a technology that some of our adversaries have, then we better be concerned. The reporter then said it was interesting how he didn't rule out the possibilities of extraterrestrials. The next question was the following: do you know what our adversaries are capable of? And do you know if they have the capabilities? He said the following: I don't think so. But when it comes to the universe is so large that we have a program in NASA called the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, but thus far we don't have any receipts of communication from something that would be intelligent. The next question was the following: do you think this report is going to create more anxiety and theories around this topic? People want an explanation, and people want to know what these things are. He responded with the following: "Ever since the Navy pilot's video came out, people are hungry to know. And ever since Star Trek, people are desperate to find out what's out there in the cosmos. Are we alone? Personally, I don't think we are. The universe is so big. It's 13.5 billion years ago when the universe started. That's pretty big. But people are hungry for this kind of information, and we're going to keep on searching." The reporter then said that it sounds like you believe in the idea that there's other living beings outside of planet Earth. To which he responded with the following: "We are already finding examples of other planets around other suns. When we launch the James Webb Telescope in November, it will appear back in time almost to the beginning. And then we will find important information and more planets." Many people find these comments interesting, as NASA hasn't really been vocal about the topic of mysterious crafts, and when they've been asked questions, they usually just shut them down immediately. But people gave praise to Bill Nelson, as it comes across that he has a much more open mind. One of the things that people picked up on was the fact that he said the United States is very advanced, and that he doesn't think that other countries have this type of technology. The question that this then poses is who owns these things? If the biggest powerhouse on the planet has admitted that it's not them, and even officials are saying that they don't have this type of tech, where are these things coming from? One of the issues with this is that there's many different theories floating around, and people have found it strange how these officials are changing their tune. After all, governments and space agencies have never been vocal about these mysterious crafts, but all of a sudden they're now claiming that they want to know what these things are. There's some who have speculated that it's got to the point that they now need to be honest, while others have said that they may have a motive of their own, with some noting that whenever this topic gets brought up, it's shortly followed by the military asking for a much bigger budget, and that they need to ensure that they can protect people. This narrative has already put people off, with many saying that it's strange how they're making out like these things are a threat, and that we need a much bigger budget just in case things go wrong. People who are interested in this topic have said that surely if these things were going to do anything, they would have done it by now, saying that it's hard to know where all of this has come from and why it's come out now. For years, pilots, officials, and everyday people have reported seeing these mysterious crafts, but they were largely ignored, with some even losing their jobs after they spoke out. As of right now, many theories remain, but what some have noted is that the government can't really win, regardless of the outcome, saying that if these do belong to us, they've been lying about our technological capabilities for years, and that this whole time we've had aircraft that are able to travel across our planet at tens of thousands of miles per hour. Also noting that if these things don't belong to us and are extraterrestrial in nature, it means that they've lied to generations for years, and that a whole new discussion needs to be had about our place in the universe. What do you make of these mysterious crafts? And what do you make of the new NASA administrator being open about these mysterious crafts? Also, what do you think they are? Humans have a hunger for hidden or secretive discoveries, and find satiation when questions are answered. The knowledge humans crave about the unknown is what keeps scientists and researchers asking questions humans thrive to know. Books, films, even entire genres of entertainment have been dedicated to the tempting sensation of finding a once-hidden secret in the middle of a sprawling jungle. We are continually amazed at the new discoveries made by scientists and researchers across the globe. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 jungle discoveries. Orang Mawa's cryptid. A cryptid is a term given to a creature or being who is largely mythological and has not been proven to exist by the scientific community. However, several creatures once given the cryptid name have turned out to be not as fictitious as first believed. For example, the coelacanth and the okapi were once cryptids and have now been scientifically acknowledged to exist. The Orang Mawa's cryptid of the jungle of Johor in Malaysia is another example of a being that was thought to be the stuff of legends, but there have been so many reported sightings that entire web groups have sprung up, dedicated to proving its existence. This creature is rumored to be a hominid about 10 feet tall, walking on 2 legs and covered in black fur. The locals of the jungle, the Orang Asli people, call the Orang Mawas Hanta Jarang Gigi, which means snaggletooth ghost, and they have many legends which tell of the creature being sighted feeding on fish and raiding orchards. Although sightings of the Orang Mawas have been reported regularly as far back as 1871, with legend and myth dating the sightings back even further, many believe that it is not a cryptid at all, but merely a surviving relative of the Gigantopithecus, which was an enormous ancient ape. Still, others dismiss the sightings entirely and claim that it is simply a sun bear, a black bear that feeds on fruit and is native to the area, being mistaken or something more sinister. Verified sightings of the Orang Mawas have occurred since the 1950s, with a highly publicized sighting occurring as recently as 2005 that gave a large amount of credence to believers in the 3 local workers clearing land all reported seeing 3 Orang Mawas, 2 adults and a child, walking along the river together, as though they were a family. Upon later investigation, along the riverbank were large humanoid footprints up to 1.5 feet long, where the Mawas family had supposedly been sighted. The momentum of the mystery surrounding the creatures truly took off several months later at the beginning of 2006, when a local Malaysian newspaper published photographs of a fresh tar footprint that was believed to be from the Orang Mawas. Later that same month, Johor authorities announced that they would be sending an official government expedition to try to prove the existence of the Mawas, and in doing so, became the first country to have an officially sanctioned hunt for a mysterious hominid. Some reports from the expedition claimed that they found and captured an Orang Mawas later that same year, but the official report denied it. Orang Mawas, fanatics, believe that sightings of the creature are becoming more common as humans carve into the jungle and destroy its home, and it is forced to expose itself to humans, meaning that it is only a matter of time before its existence is proven once and for all, while others simply believe the sightings are misidentified apes and orangutans. Only time will tell whether this mysterious cryptid is truly out there in the jungles of Malaysia. And for now, the search continues. The yowie. The yowie, or more commonly referred to as the Australian Bigfoot, is a large beast that stands on 2 legs roughly 7 to 12 feet tall and has the general appearance of that of a large ape-like creature. Sightings of this beast have persisted for eons since the time of the Aborigines and their ancient mythological folklore. What is all the more startling about this urban legend is that even to this day many Australians claim to have encountered the yowie, and many others have started their own research groups looking into the logistics and evidence of these mythological beasts. Ancient Aboriginal myths created the Yahweh as being beasts from the time before man, and that the Yahweh were the original inhabitants of the Australian continent, but were completely driven out of their native lands by men that came there to settle. Interestingly, this could very well be possible evidence of the Homo sapiens driving out Neanderthals, a species similar to that of humans and were believed to share an ancient common ancestor, but later went extinct roughly 35,000 years ago under mysterious causes. Going down the yowie rabbit hole leads to further startling theories surrounding their existence. From Australian government officials covering up further evidence, to yowies being involved in many of the extraterrestrial and unidentified flying object sightings all around Australia. There are even subgroups of the yowie community that defend the idea that yowie might be an alien species visiting the Earth and that the Bigfoot monsters and variations could all be this extraterrestrial species. The yowie creature is commonly encountered in Queensland, Australia, with many of the eyewitnesses saying that this creature is unlike anything they've seen before. One woman claimed that she saw one outside of her house and that when she went out to investigate afterwards, a bad odor was left in the air. She didn't manage to take any photographs as the encounter lasted only for a few minutes. However, she describes the creature as looking like a tall humanoid that had a thick layer of hair. Although the yowie creature is said to just live in Australia, others have suggested that the yowie and Bigfoot creature are actually the same. The mysterious yowies are still being reported by the general public to this day. Civilizations that used to live within the Amazon since the 16th century, we have held the warped belief that the Amazon rainforest was largely untouched and entirely natural. It was a common assumption that prior to the Spanish invasions, only small groups of nomadic people lived intermittently along the Amazon riverbanks and estuary, though new research suggests otherwise, revealing vast interconnected villages near the Amazon. Areas of the Amazon that previously could not be explored have been made accessible due to the development of satellite imagery. This allows for even the densest areas of the forest to be explored, letting archaeologists search for the ancient geoglyphs that indicate the presence of civilizations. Geoglyphs are art pieces formed through the moving of the landscape, such as arrangements of stones. The team, funded in part by National Geographic, had a set of 24 coordinates they considered leads, all of which proved to be positive. One in particular, however, proved to be incredibly useful, leading scientists to ceramics and charcoal, which testing indicated comes from 1410 CE. Trends also seem to show that the geoglyphs are most likely to be found in places on high elevation, such as the hills within the Amazon. This new research shows that the civilizations had settled in a wider space than we thought, as people lived further than the riverside with settlements spanning over 1,100 miles. Another conclusion drawn from this study is that the population densities predicted through computer modeling were higher than thought previously. It was thought prior to this research that 2 million lived in the Amazon rainforest. But now we know 500,000 to 1 million live within only 7% of the Amazon basin. A previous idea was that after the European, those who lived in the forest had passed away due to diseases and genocide. Primary author of the research project, Jose Iriate, archaeologist from the University of Exeter, said in relation to this, we need to reevaluate the history of the Amazon. Other information we know surrounding the history of the civilizations living in the Amazon is fairly limited. The Inca Empire was at its height of productivity and growth when the Spanish, French, Dutch, and English invasions began to occur. Inca societies were based in Cusco, Peru, and these small societal groups and communities stretched into the Amazon lowlands. The assumption that the rainforest was untouched and the ignoring of these groups stems from the European invasions of early modern Europe. The diseases brought over by these new groups led to rapid loss of lives, effectively erasing the appearance of the hard work and lifestyle of these indigenous groups, as the rainforest appeared uninhabited to newcomers. With the European conquests, many indigenous people became victims in forced labor camps, eventually resulting in the tragedy of enslavement and genocides of these remarkable groups of. But what do you make of these jungle discoveries? Mysteries are all around us, with new ones cropping up almost every day and in a wide range of locations. No matter where you look, you are bound to discover something new and mysterious without an explanation. As the human race ventures further into the unknown, we continue to unearth new unsolved mysteries. From the bottom of the ocean to the deep darkness of caves, so many discoveries are just waiting to be found. Some fascinating and unsettling discoveries. Some of these shed light on our ancient history as a species, while others serve as clues to puzzles we have not yet cracked. So today, we will be taking a look at 3 recent discoveries that shed light on ancient civilizations. Railway workers discover 14th century cave with medieval shrine. From bones to buried treasure, railway workers have been the source of many fascinating discoveries. In April 2020, a group of railway workers stumbled upon an unexpected find while excavating a hill, a small cave with the shrine likely dating back to the 14th century. The workers were trying to strengthen and stabilize the railway embankment when they happened to encounter the cave. Sections of the cave vary in height from 0.3 to 0.7 meters. In what is now Drake Hill in East Yorkshire, England, a site of cult activity may have been transformed into a later medieval shrine or hermitage. This site would have likely been associated with the early 14th century chapel of St. Catherine, which is situated on the hill nearby. The dark, eerie cave is covered in soot from lamps that once burned to illuminate its hallways. The cave is partially filled with black dust, which has led experts to believe that it was once a place where people could write and carve on the ceiling. Experts have also found 2 fire pits, which they hope will help them date when the cave was in use. Mark Killick, Network Rail Wessex route director, said, "This is an unexpected and fascinating discovery that helps to visualize and understand the rich history of the area. A full and detailed report of the cave has been made, and every effort will be made to preserve elements where possible during the regrading of the delicate and vulnerable sandstone cutting. No further information has been uncovered." Prehistoric monument in Golan Heights fuels mystery. In the Middle Eastern territory of Golan Heights lies a mystery that is easy to miss, a prehistoric circular monument in the middle of a field. During a 1967 survey, archaeologists uncovered a structure that they believe to be one of the oldest and largest in the region. In Arabic, the monument is called Kum el-Hiri, which means the stone heap of the wild cat. For centuries it evaded discovery as it could not be seen from the ground, and it is only thanks to aerial surveillance that we now know it exists. Since then, excavations have determined that it is one of the oldest and largest archaeological formations in the region. It's estimated to be around 5,000 years old, about the same age as Stonehenge in the United Kingdom. So far, the purpose of this monument in Golan Heights is unknown, although several theories have been put forward about its original significance. From what scientists have been able to determine so far, it appears to have some astrological significance. Some of the openings in the stone arrangement correspond with sunrises and sunsets during the June and December solstices, the shortest and longest days of the year respectively. As with its significance, no one is really sure who built the monument. The most popular theory is that it was put together by a nomadic tribe passing through the area and settling there temporarily. However, it would have taken a great deal of energy and work to arrange the stones, as well as resources, something that a lone nomadic tribe might not have had access to. According to a 2021 report from Reuters, standing on the ground inside the complex, it looks like a labyrinth of crumbling stone walls overgrown with weeds. From on top of the 5-meter-high burial mound, it is possible to make out a circular pattern. Only from the air does the impressive shape of a massive bullseye clearly emerge. Shards of ancient pottery, as well as flint tools and implements found nearby, helped estimate the date of the monument's creation. Only time and further research will determine its true purpose and origins. Until then, the monument is used during military training exercises, although visitors are welcome to take a look at it and draw their own conclusions on weekends as well as holidays. Ancient Mayan superhighways found in the Guatemalan jungle. The jungle is full of mysteries. For a long time, Mayan culture was one of these mysteries. Even in the present era, we have much more to learn about the Mayans, how they lived, what they built, and why they built. There is no better example of this lack of knowledge than the recently discovered ancient Mayan superhighways found deep within the Guatemalan jungle. These causeways stretch approximately 150 miles through dense trees and foliage and were only discovered as the result of high-tech scanning. It is fascinating to consider what more we have left to discover in the jungle and what more we might uncover with future advancements in technology. Although we have no real way of knowing why Mayans created the paths, experts have established they were used to transport goods from one place to another. Each road or individual structure is approximately 40 meters wide, up to 6 meters high, and in some cases span a length of as much as 40 kilometers. The region of Guatemala in which the superhighway was discovered is El Mirador, or the Ken Kingdom. Although there is still a lot to learn about the area, it is now recognized as the cradle of Mayan civilization. Therefore, it makes sense that such a significant discovery about the Mayans would be made here. In addition to hosting these superhighways, El Mirador was also once home to at least 1 million people and the largest pyramid in Central America. The superhighways were discovered here thanks to a laser-based remote sensing technology called light detection and ranging, or LiDAR. This technology penetrates the thick canopy and dense plant matter to uncover what lies beneath. LiDAR uses laser pulses that bounce from the Earth's surface through leaves and back to a computer mounted in a plane. While most people felt the technology would not be successful based on past experiments in Central America, we became convinced by 2006 that it could be used to determine what was on the ground in terms of Mayan sites under the jungle canopy. The Republic of Guatemala is currently considering the Mirador Basin for a protected status. It would be classified as a wilderness area, so the vast natural and historical resources it contains could be preserved for as long as possible. Archaeologists are also hoping to unearth more mysterious discoveries here. As we have seen in these 3 recent mysterious cases, humanity has so much more of the world to discover. As science and technology continue to evolve, what other mysteries will we uncover? We are looking forward to the future and to learning more about the world we live in through these mysteries. But what do you think of these discoveries? The unknown embraces us, and we are encircled by mystery. Mysteries abound in every nook and cranny of our lives, and they cannot be confined behind a cocoon of normalcy. Science and technology are always evolving and progressing. This opens up entirely new avenues for researching not only the future and prospective methods to improve our huge knowledge and understanding of the cosmos, but also previous mysteries. Every day, new facts about the past, present, and future are unearthed. Others, particularly extraterrestrial findings, raise more questions. So today, we'll be taking a close look at 3 mysterious discoveries. Release of Arctic methane could accelerate warming. The Arctic is recognized as the epicenter of the dispute over the vulnerability of frozen methane reserves in the ocean, which have now been dubbed the sleeping giants of the carbon cycle. And if discharges pass a tipping threshold, global warming might accelerate. The question of when or even if they will be released into the atmosphere has been a source of substantial uncertainty in climate computer models. Temperature is presently increasing more than twice as fast as the worldwide average. Researchers are concerned that the discovery of high amounts of strong greenhouse gas down to a depth of 350 meters in the Laptev Sea in Russia may have extreme climatic effects. The Arctic slope deposits contain a significant number of frozen methane and other gases, which are referred to as hydrates. Over the course of 20 years, methane has an 80-fold greater warming effect than carbon dioxide. Arctic hydrate destabilization was originally recognized as one of the foremost catastrophic possibilities for anthropogenic climate change by the United States Geological Survey. The academic Keldysh 60-member team believes they are the first to determine that the release of methane is already underway throughout a large portion of the hillside 600 kilometers offshore. The emission of methane from Arctic permafrost regions, water, and soils is known as Arctic methane release. Methane release is worsened by global warming, despite the fact that it is a long-term natural process. Because methane is a potent greenhouse gas, this has a detrimental impact. The Arctic is one of several natural sources of methane, a greenhouse gas. Meanwhile, a recent study showed that the release of methane from old carbon sources did not add much to the warming that happened in the last deglaciation, or the period after the last ice age. This occurred between 18,000 and 8,000 years ago, a time period that climate scientists are extensively studying because it is the last time global temperatures soared by 4 degrees centigrade, which is about what is anticipated for the planet by 2100. Many people believe that prehistoric methane emissions are not something to be concerned about in the 21st century, based on the findings of this study. This optimism, however, may well be mistaken. So what does this signify for climate change in the future? It means that, according to popular belief, carbon emissions from the warming Arctic may not be caused by the melting of long-frozen carbon capsules. Instead, the majority of emissions could be relatively new carbon created by freshly grown plants. This demonstrates that the age of the carbon emitted by the warming Arctic is less essential than the quantity and manner in which it is emitted. Over a 100-year period, methane is 34 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Because young carbon will likely account for the majority of Arctic emissions this century, we may not even be alarmed by ancient permafrost contributing significantly to present global warming. However, carbon that was formerly in soil or plant matter will continue to leak into the atmosphere, making the Arctic a significant source of carbon emissions. This will become more common as the Arctic summer becomes longer due to rising temperatures. The new findings should prompt the international community to take aggressive action on climate change, limiting how many natural cycles in the Arctic can exacerbate the problem. Strange circles appeared on the frozen surface of Lake Baikal being seen by astronauts. In many ways, Lake Baikal is extraordinary. It is the world's largest in terms of volume and deepest freshwater lake, being 1,637 meters at its deepest point. It is also one of the world's oldest lakes, being 25 to 30 million years old, with up to 7 kilometers of sediment deposited on the bottom. Because it is located in the Baikal Rift Valley, The lake has a long, thin, and deep shape. Strange ice rings have been growing in Lake Baikal since 1969, but the actual mechanism behind their formation has remained a mystery for decades. Researchers have finally figured out what is causing these strange sightings, according to a new study published in the journal Limnology and Oceanography. Astronauts on board the International Space Station saw a strange circular patch of thinned ice near the southern end of Lake Baikal in southern Siberia in late April 2009. Siberia is an isolated and freezing place with ice cover that can last far into June. Its top view, a close-up astronaut snapshot, depicts a circle of thin ice, dark in hue, with a diameter of roughly 4.4 kilometers that serves as the focal point for ice breakup in the lake's southernmost reaches. The feature was initially observed on April 5, 2009, according to a series of Modi's pictures. Another very identical circle is then found at the lake's center, a top and underwater ridge that cuts the lake in half. Both rings were seen till April 20, 2009, until April 24, when the circular piece of thin ice became a hole of open water. Clouds covered the middle of the lake. In April 1994, during the STS-59 shuttle mission in 1985, similar circular ice patterns were observed in the same central section of the lake, though not quite as prominent during the STS-51B shuttle mission. Although the ring's origin is uncertain, the strange pattern indicates convection, tidal in the lake's water column. At this time of year, ice cover fluctuates frequently. The ice can melt nearly completely in a day and freeze during the night. The rings arise as ice covers the ground and subsequently fade as the ice melts throughout April. Because of the pattern and look, the ice appears to be relatively thin. The main cause of this warm, deep water formation is unknown, but the study is ongoing to learn more about it. Existing evidence suggests that water from other rivers and wind patterns may have a role, and that they originate in the autumn months before the ice freezes. For the time being, many secrets remain hidden within this ancient and vast lake. Mystery of the green iceberg may soon be solved. With their blue and white colors, icebergs are a sight to behold. Because ice absorbs more red light than blue light, these colors make sense for glaciers. Researchers have proposed a new theory that could explain why some Antarctic icebergs are tinted emerald green rather than the usual blue, potentially resolving a decades-old scientific puzzle. Ice absorbs more red light than blue light, which is why it is blue. When floating in seawater, most icebergs are white or blue, but explorers and sailors have reported witnessing strange green icebergs near particular sections of Antarctica since the early 1900s. For years, scientists have been fascinated by the green icebergs, but now glaciologists say in a new study that iron oxides in rock dust from Antarctica's mainland are suspected of making certain icebergs green. Following the discovery of massive levels of iron in East Antarctica's Amari ice shelf by Australian researchers, they devised a novel theory. Iron is an important nutrient in phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that make up the foundation of the ocean's food chain. However, iron is in little supply in many parts of the ocean. If the new theory is genuine, it means that when green icebergs fall off, they transport valuable iron from Antarctica's landmass to the open sea, delivering this essential mineral to the creatures that maintain practically all marine life. It's like going to the post office and picking up a parcel. Lead author Stephen Warren, a glaciologist and professor emeritus in the University of Washington's Department of Atmospheric Sciences, said the iceberg can send this iron out into the ocean far away, then melt and transfer it to phytoplankton that can use it as a nutrient. We used to think green icebergs were merely an unusual novelty, but now we believe they could be significant. To see if the theory holds up, the team planned to sample icebergs of various colors for their ion concentration. But what do you make of these three discoveries? Discovery is the lifeblood of existence. Innate in every human, there is a sense of exploration that makes science's most recent discoveries incredibly exciting. The vast frontier of space is home to countless discoveries that we could soon uncover, and scientists work tirelessly to better understand our place in the universe. So today we'll be taking a look at three exciting space discoveries. NASA touches down on asteroid Bennu. Asteroids are not simple celestial bodies to engage with. Compared to planets and the size of the universe, they're like tiny atoms in the sky. So you may be surprised to know that NASA recently touched down on an asteroid Bennu, and the organization discussed the exciting mission in October of 2020. More than 700 million Mars away from Earth. The asteroid is in good condition, and it gives scientists the chance to see what the solar system was like when it was first formed billions of years in the past. The asteroid could also point towards celestial impacts that may have dropped off materials on Earth. On the 20th of October in 2020, NASA's OSIRIS-RX sample collection mission performed a successful touch and go, also known as a tag maneuver. At 1:50 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on that fateful day, NASA's OSIRIS-REx used its high-end thrusters in order to position itself around Bennu's asteroid orbit. Carefully navigating towards the high-speed asteroid, the machine extended the shoulder, elbow, then the wrist of its 11-foot sampling arm. This long arm is named the touch-and-go sample acquisition mechanism. After descending around half a mile towards Bennu's surface for 4 hours, the OSIRIS spacecraft began what it called the checkpoint burn. This maneuver is just one of two that allow the shuttle to reach its target, the sample collection site known as Nightingale. From NASA's data, they believe that the tag event was successful and went as expected, though it will be some time before the team working on the project will be able to confirm how many samples spacecraft collected. The image of Bennu that we can turn to in order to visualize the asteroid is a composite made from two images taken by the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft. The image depicts Bennu ejecting some kind of particles away from its surface, and the image was produced using cropping, brightness adjustment, as well as contrast editing. The fastest growing black hole. When we think of black holes, we usually think of giant space vacuum cleaners eating everything they come into close contact with and pulling anything unfortunate enough to enter their paths. But not all black holes grow at the same speed, and some actually grow much faster than others. If 2020 wasn't scary enough, it also marks the year where scientists confirmed that the existence of what is now known as the fastest growing black hole ever recorded. In 2018, at the Australian National University, a team of researchers discovered the black hole with the short name of J2157. After years of investigation, the team examined the object's mass and matter intake to better understand the black hole's condition. What they found was staggering. Using the Very Large Telescope in Chile, the team knew that the black hole is actually a quasar. Technically speaking, quasars are very bright centers of space that surround supermassive black holes as they pull in matter. As the matter is dragged into the black hole, energy is ejected out in massive amounts, and we can observe this energy all across the electromagnetic spectrum. The matter that surrounds the black hole's edge moves at incredible speeds, almost the speed of light. This has left some scientists to describe the phenomenon as a natural particle accelerator. We now know that J2157 is actually 34 billion times the mass of our Sun. For comparison, the Milky Way is home to the supermassive black hole Sagittarius A star. Our black hole is a meager 4.2 million solar masses, roughly 8,000 times less than J2157. If you were to swap Sagittarius A star with J2157, it would shine 10 times brighter in the sky than the moon. The rate that J2157 is growing is equally astounding. Believe it or not, the Beermoth black hole actually grows roughly 1 solar mass each Earth day. That's one size of our Sun, every 24 hours. It's also about 3.8 planet Earths every second that passes. Team researcher Dr. Foyen Bien, an astronomer from the European South Observatory, said the following of the discovery. We knew we were on to a very massive black hole when we realized its fast growth rate. How much black holes can swallow depends on how much mass they already have. So for this one to be devouring matter at such a high rate, we thought it could become a new record holder. And now we know. However, luckily for us, J2157 is roughly 12.5 billion light-years away. This means that we are observing it when the universe was 10% of the age it is now. Scarily, this also means the black hole is likely much, much larger today, and its size could be unimaginable. While black holes may mystify and terrify us, There's no denying that there is plenty more for us to learn about the universe's most destructive and gargantuan celestial bodies. NASA discovers new world. Finding new planets isn't quite the big deal as it used to be in the medieval ages. While humans may have initially believed that the universe began and ended with the solar system, we now know that the universe is home to 10 to the power of 25 planets, a truly staggering number. That said, it isn't very often that we discover a planet that shares the same coveted characteristics of Earth. Planets in the often described Goldilocks zone, where it's not too hot or too cold, are a keen interest for scientists and the general public, as they point to the possibility of future colonies or even different forms of life. In January of 2020, NASA announced their discovery of one of these hospitable planets. The discovery was made by NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, also known as TESS. The Earth-sized planet orbits within the habitable Goldilocks zone of its nearby star. This ideal location means that it could be possible that conditions would allow for liquid water on the planet's surface. The planet, named TOI 700d, was confirmed using NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope. NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite has discovered its first Earth-sized planet in its star's habitable zone. The range of distances where conditions may just be right to allow the presence of liquid water on the surface. Scientists confirmed the find called TOI 700d using NASA's Spitzer Space Telescope and are using the discovery to point towards other Earth-like planets. Paul Hertz, Astrophysics Division Director at NASA, said, TESS was designed and launched specifically to find Earth-sized planets orbiting nearby stars. Follow up with larger telescopes in space and on Earth. Discovering TOI 700d is a key science finding for TESS. Confirming the planet's size and habitable zone status with Spitzer is another win for Spitzer as it approaches the end of science operations this January. The planet's star, TOI 700, is small and cool. It is a dwarf star and is located in the Dorado constellation, just above 100 light-years away. The star is approximately 40% of the mass of our Sun and has roughly half of our Sun's surface temperature. Scientists know that TOI 700 has 3 planets, and the team originally believed the star was much more similar to our Sun, with the planets appearing to be much larger and hotter than they actually are. When the error was discovered, scientists noticed that the accurate readings indicated that TOI 700d hospitable to life. Emily Gilbert, a graduate student at the University of Chicago, said, "When we corrected the star's parameters, the sizes of its planets dropped, and we realized the outermost one was about the size of Earth and in the habitable zone. Additionally, in 11 months of data, we saw no flares from the star, which improves the chances TOI 700d is habitable and makes it easier to muzzle its atmospheric and surface conditions. The planet closest to the star, named TOI 700b, is incredibly similar to Earth's size. The planet is most likely rocky and finishes its orbit every 10 days. The next planet, TOI 700c, completes its orbit every 16 days, is just over 2.5 times the size of Earth, and is probably mostly made up of gases. The final planet, TOI 700d, is the one which shows the most promise towards habitability. The planet is estimated to be 20% bigger than Earth and takes in 80% of the energy that the Sun sends to Earth. Each one of these planets is believed to be tidally locked, meaning that they make one rotation per orbit, meaning one side is perpetually in daylight. But what do you make of these space discoveries? Escaping to a deserted island sounds like a spectacular way to live, doesn't it? Living in a remote area surrounded by beaches and palm trees sounds like something out of a dream. Well, what if you were being held there against your will? Or worse, what if you were trapped there without food or water? The dream begins to sound a lot more like a nightmare, and that was very much the case for some of the people who called these 3 mysterious islands home. So today we'll be taking a look at these mysterious island stories. Tragedies of North Brother Island you can't visit. It is hard to believe that the densely populated and world-famous city of Manhattan has even a single plot of uninhabited land. What you may be surprised to find out is that there is actually a 22-acre plot of land called North Brother Island located in the East River that belongs to the city but has been abandoned for over half a century. While it is not open to the public, satellite images and documentary footage reveal that the island has been entirely overgrown by plants, and all that remains are the crumbling ruins of the 12 buildings that once stood. This island was home to Riverside Hospital, a place where people with infectious diseases were sent to be treated and kept in isolation. Diseases like tuberculosis, yellow fever, smallpox, and typhus were rampant at the time, and the city needed a place to care for these contagious patients, without risk of further infecting New York's population. Mary Mallon, more commonly known as Typhoid Mary, was the most notorious resident of the hospital. She was the first ever documented person in the United States to be an asymptomatic carrier of typhoid. Mary had been a cook for many of the wealthy families in New York, and suddenly many of them were quickly becoming ill with the contagious typhoid fever. When trying to determine the origins of their illness, the only common denominator was that Mary had cooked for them. Unaware of her condition, she unknowingly infected over 50 people, 3 of whom lost their lives. Mary refused to believe she was a carrier and denied any possibilities that she was the one responsible for the spread of typhoid in her community. To her horror, she was forcibly quarantined on the island against her will by local authorities. She spent nearly 30 years incarcerated in the hospital. She passed away of a stroke in 1938. This is not even the most tragic story to take place on the island. In June of 1904, the congregation of St. Mark's Evangelical Lutheran Church boarded the General Slocum sidewheel boat for their annual end-of-school picnic. Since it was a Wednesday, many of the men were off to work, and the boat's passengers consisted mainly of women and children that were eager to spend the day in the sun of Long Island's North Shore. With all 1,300 of its passengers, the ship made its way to Long Island. As they began their 2-hour voyage upriver, the crew below deck noticed smoke coming through the floorboards. They immediately found the lower deck engulfed in flames and were unable to put them out with the rotted fire hoses aboard the ship. The captain steered the boat towards North Brother Island in the hopes that passengers could jump overboard and swim to safety. The wind caused the fire to spread at an alarming rate, and the ship was engulfed in flames from end to end in a matter of minutes. Passengers had to choose between burning alive or drowning in the choppy river. The boat sank in shallow waters 25 feet from North Brother Island, where the residents and staff were able to get people out of the water and treat their burns. They watched as hundreds of lifeless bodies crashed into the shore. 1,000 people lost their lives that day to the fire. The water. The hospital was repurposed twice, once in the 1940s for veterans housing, and then as a substance rehabilitation center that was shut down after widespread reports of staff corruption. It has been abandoned ever since and is now a bird sanctuary. Unexplained bones of Henderson Island undisturbed in the eastern South Pacific. Henderson Island is considered one of the world's best remaining examples of a pristine elevated coral atoll, whose ecology has nearly avoided the influence of humans. It is the last remaining atoll in the world with a pristine forest and a biologically diverse ecosystem that has not felt the negative impact of human disturbance. And the terrain is made up of jagged rock and dense thicket, making it unsuitable for agriculture or human habitation. It was a miracle that the shipwrecked crew of the American whaling ship Essex was able to survive on the island for several months between 1820 and 1821 before their rescue. While in mid-ocean, the whaling ship was sunk by a mighty 40-foot sperm whale, which is thought to be the inspiration for Herman Melville's Moby Dick. The survivors escaped on a small boat and sailed towards Henderson Island. Once there, 4 crew members stayed on the island while the rest sailed off in an endeavor to reach South America. Those left on the island had no food and no fresh water. They would not have survived without a few lucky rainfalls that provided drinking water. However, they struggled to find food without the ability to hunt or fish to sustain themselves. They had to suck the blood of the birds they could catch and would eat any turtles they could find on the shore. To shelter themselves from the elements, they stayed in caves formed by nature among the rocks. In one cave they found 6 complete skeletons that were laid side by side neatly, almost as if they had planned to die together. This was a strange find on an uninhabited island, and it was assumed they were the remains of another shipwrecked crew. In 1958, nearly 140 years later, another 6 skeletons were found on a separate part of the island. In an effort to respect the dead, the bones were always left untouched, except for the samples of hair taken from the skulls in an attempt to identify the bodies. It was not until 1992 that a researcher, Dr. Weisler, took parts of the skeletons to his lab to analyze and determine that all the human remains were actually from prehistoric Polynesians that were thought to have lived on the island at one time. Prehistoric wonders of Gozo Island. Gozo, an island in the Mediterranean Sea, is home to the oldest freestanding structures in the world. Predating Stonehenge and even the Great Pyramids, the megalithic temples of Malta date back to 3600 BC. Researchers estimated that Gozo has been inhabited since 5000 BC and was originally found by Sicilian farmers, which they deduced from finding similar pottery found in both areas from the same time. During the Neolithic period, Gantia temples were built, making Gozo an important place for cultural evolution with the world's oldest religious structures. Today, the temples are the best preserved historical sites in the Maltese Islands thanks to extensive preservation efforts. The Gantia temples, which is Maltese for place of giants, were aptly named as the Gossodons believed they were built by a race of giants. The actual technique used to construct these magnificent temples is still unknown. Researchers have found a number of massive spherical stones that could have been used to roll the gigantic pieces of the temple into place, but there is no explanation of how they would have managed to place and stack the stones to form the temples. Greek historians Eumerus and Callimachus maintain that Gozo is actually the island of Ogygia, described by Homer as the home of the nymph Calypso, daughter of the Titan Atlas, who holds up the sky on his shoulders. You can still visit these prehistoric structures today, and they are among the top tourist attractions in the area. What do you make of these mysterious islands and their hidden stories? People disappear every day in strange and mysterious ways. Some vanish from right under the noses of their family, while others might accidentally wander off or become victims of foul play. Some are lucky enough to be found, while many others are never seen or heard from again. So today we will be looking at 3 instances where people disappeared. Hiker rescued after a man on Twitter located him from a photo of his feet. Rene Compion was a 46-year-old who embarked on a hike through the mountains in Southern California. He was in contact with his friends, even sending them a picture of his feet dangling off a ledge. But after several hours passed with no further communication from Compion, his friends reported him missing to the police and search teams were dispatched. Unfortunately, the police did not have much to go on. As they began the search, Compion's friends were not sure exactly which trail or region he was hiking in, and it appeared that his phone was out of charge as texts and calls were not going through. He had also disabled the location services on his phone, so officials were not able to track his last known location from the texts that he had sent. All that they had to base their search off was the low-resolution photo that he had sent his friends, containing only his legs and some rocks, with no defining features or landmarks whatsoever. As lead after lead ran out and the search parties yielded nothing, police took to Twitter to ask for assistance. They posted the somewhat grainy photo with the caption, "Are you an avid hiker in the Mount Waterman area? Search and rescue teams need help locating a missing hiker." He sent this picture to a friend. His car was found near Buckhorn Campground Trailhead. Call us if you recognize the area pictured below. They posted the picture in the hope that someone who trekked the area regularly would be familiar enough with the landscape to be able to identify the region from the small amount included in the photo. However, they ended up being helped by someone who had never been on the trail before in his life. Benjamin Kwa, or A16YR as he is known on Twitter, is a ham radio operator who instantly began working on determining the location of Compion's photo. I've got a very weird hobby, which is I love taking a look at photos and figuring out where they're taken. He began combing through satellite footage and 3D terrain maps of the area, searching for formations that matched up with those that were in the background of the photo. Amazingly, he was able to narrow it down to very specific coordinates, which was where he believed Compine was when he took the photo. He posted these results to Twitter and contacted the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, who then began narrowing their search according to Qua's findings. The search and rescue team flew helicopters at low altitudes through the area, which was covered with a dense fog, and finally found Compine, who was unharmed and airlifted to safety. Although he suffered no injuries, Compine was desperate to be found at the time of his rescue, telling Qua, "I crazy appreciate what you did. I really don't know if I could make it there another day. It was just so cold." He had taken a wrong turn and ended up lost. Due to recent wildfires in the area that had burned down some of the signs indicating the path of the trail. Qua's amazing job finding the location of the photo could have very well saved Compine's life, as police and search parties had no idea where in the vast and dense California hiking area he had gone missing in, and it could have taken weeks to eventually find him. There is no doubt that he owes his rescue to Qua's strange hobby and his knowledge and use of available technology. Robert Horahan's disappearance. Unfortunately, some disappearances do not have the happy ending that Renee Compine was able to experience. Robert Horahan is one of these cases. He has been missing for a decade, leaving his heartbroken wife and family with no answers and nothing to do but wonder at what might have happened to their beloved husband and father. After leaving for work in the family's Chevrolet Cavalier. However, when he never returned from work that evening, his wife Tyra immediately knew that something must have gone horribly wrong. Robert was fiercely devoted to their daughter and would never have left her, not to mention the fact that he took life-saving heart medications and would have had to have taken them with him if he had intentionally left his family. Once the missing persons report was filed and police launched an investigation, the officials discovered that Robert had last used his phone at 7:41 that morning in Palmyra, Virginia, and had also been seen at the grocery store in Palmyra at around 8 a.m. While not necessarily strange that he visited a grocery store before heading to work, what struck Tara as odd was the fact that Palmyra was the opposite direction from his work. Additionally, investigators discovered that Robert did not even have work the day that he left, and was supposed to meet with a friend instead. But he never showed up to the meeting. The case then went cold until his car was discovered in a parking lot in La Plata, Maryland, over 100 miles from Palmyra. The car contained some of his work tools and a work shirt, but his phone, as well as anything that could indicate where he might have gone, was missing. Video footage of the parking lot revealed nothing helpful, and it took so long for the car to be discovered that the footage of the car being parked had already been taped over. So officials do not even know exactly how long the car had been sitting in the lot. Since that day, no more leads have been discovered in the case. Police suspect foul play and hope that since so much time has passed there might be someone who knows something about the case who would come forward. Tara has had to spend the intervening years as a single mother raising a daughter who hardly even remembers her father, and the family has not even been able to receive closure in the case. The case is still open and ongoing, as officials hope to one day be able to offer a little bit of peace of mind with the family in the form of some answers as to what happened to Robert after he disappeared all those years ago. John Briska's disappearance. Sometimes even fame cannot protect you from the horrors of the world, as was the case with professional basketball player John Briska. Briska was an American NBA player playing for the University of Toledo and then moving on to the Pittsburgh Pipers, Pittsburgh Commodores, and Seattle Supersonics. Although a skilled player, he quickly gained a reputation as an explosive and volatile athlete. His teammates reported being frequently frightened by his aggressive, occasionally threatening demeanor, and his willingness to pick fights even during a professional game earned him the nickname the heavyweight champion of the ABA. In one game, he was ejected for fighting after only 2 minutes and attempted to charge back onto the court so many times that he was threatened with arrest unless he went to the locker rooms for the remainder of the game. He was an excellent player, but say something wrong to the guy and you had this feeling would reach into his bag, take out a firearm and shoot you. Remember Charlie Williams, one of his teammates with the Pittsburgh Condors. It might seem difficult for such a blazing, fiery 6'5" personality to simply disappear without a trace, but that is exactly what happened to Briska. In March of 1978, after he had been out of the NBA for 3 years and his career seemed to be winding down, he embarked on what appeared to be a business trip to Uganda. He had a 1-month-old daughter with his girlfriend and was interested in establishing a more stable way to provide for his family through launching an import-export business. He called his girlfriend, who was still in Seattle, on April 11th, and that was the last anyone ever heard from the former NBA athlete. Authorities have virtually no information to go off, although Brisker's former teammates and fans have spawned many legends and rumors based on the belief that he might have become a mercenary that met a bad end or had got involved in the Ugandan coup. However, the truth is that nobody has any idea what really happened to him. Although he was declared deceased in order to settle his estate, it is not even certain that he ever arrived in Africa at all. His communication during his absence was spotty and lacked any information that might have helped authorities in either country locate him, and a spokesperson for the FBI in Seattle has said that essentially we don't consider him deceased. The case has been cold ever since, and the lack of even one single lead has been incredibly frustrating for those hoping to receive some closure regarding the fate of the former star. The mystery behind the disappearance has garnered a small following, and many individuals have spent countless hours attempting to track down Briska, but it truly appears that he vanished without a trace, meaning that he either perished somewhere in Uganda or is alive and well somewhere in the world, but just does not want to be found. But what do you make of these 3 stories? The Amazon Conservation app just detected something worrying. Its tracker has revealed the first 2 major fires in the Brazilian Amazon for 2021. The images were taken via satellite, revealing that it happened at the end of May and continued into June, with conservationists saying it's likely these fires will increase as the weeks go on. They said the following on their website. Importantly, the imagery also revealed that both fires burned recently in deforested areas. That is, instead of being actual forest fires, both areas were actually first deforested in 2020 and then burned in 2021. The outdisplaced aerosol emissions are detected by the European Space Agency's Sentinel-5 satellite. Elevated aerosol levels indicate the burning of large in a novel approach. The app combines data from the atmosphere, aerosol emissions and smoke, and the ground heat anomaly alerts to effectively detect and visualize major Amazon fires. When fires burn, they emit gases and aerosols. A new satellite Sentinel-5P from the European Space Agency detects these aerosol emissions. Thus, the major feature of the app is detecting elevated aerosol emissions, which in turn indicate the burning of large amounts of biomass. This means that these fires were created on purpose, something that can have negative effects on the environment and the wildlife as these fires tend to spread quickly. The worry here is that these fires may create a chain reaction and that they will start to spread to other areas of the Amazon jungle. Researchers looking into this have said that over the past 30 years, 15% of the Amazon rainforest has been destroyed, causing wildlife species to massively decline due to habitat loss. Brazilian officials have just revealed that they plan to send in the military to stop this deforestation, saying that at the moment it's at an all-time high. However, Marco Estrini, who is the executive secretary of the Climate Observation, a network of environmental nonprofit groups, said that this military deployment seems to be a smokescreen and that they only claim that they're fighting deforestation when they're not. He said the following: the government has adopted a series of measures that simply destroys the state's monitoring capability, like stopping environmental fines. He also noted that they have the ability to destroy large machinery used for illegal logging and farming, but yet they don't. These illegally lit fires have been a big problem for the rainforest. The drought and deforestation has researchers worried for the future of this jungle, noting that this year could be the worst year for fires seen in the area. Scientists have announced that they're on high alert, as the data has shown them that the region is drier than ever. Matt Feiner is senior research specialist at the nonprofit Amazon Conservation. Revealed that the first major fire was a week earlier than last year, and the teams of researchers that observe the Amazon have said they've already detected forest fires throughout the region. Douglas Morton, a NASA Earth scientist who studies fires in the Amazon and the surrounding areas, went on to say the following: Widespread drought conditions in 2021 are a worrisome sign that extreme fire could affect a large part of South America, straining firefighting resources and threatening ecosystems, infrastructure, and public health. These researchers have revealed, though, that most of the large fires detected in the Amazon are started by humans, and due to the land being cleaned beforehand, these fires that are usually created by miners and loggers are spreading quicker than ever. Marcos Costa, a professor at the Federal University in Brazil, said the following: "The edge of a forest is warmer and drier than large tracts of underfragment forests, so fires are more likely to start at the edges and move into the forest." Deforestation of the Amazon is reported to be up over 70%, with the data showing that in the last 12 months over 11 million square kilometers, or 4.2 million square miles, have been cut down around the rainforest, with teams of researchers saying it's hard to visualize how much land that is, but is equal to around 2 million U.S. football fields. These areas of land have been destroyed so they can make way for things like farmland, timber production lines, and also cattle farming. One of the scientists said the following: "All that deforestation that everyone was fretting about in 2020, now it's coming back to burn, and I think that the newer deforestation that's spreading now, that's what we're going to see burn in August or September. And the dry season really intensifies." The National Institute for Space Researchers said that their data shows the fires were up a massive 83%, and this is compared to 2018. The fires can easily be seen from outside the region. It's reported that in 2019, over 72,000 fires between January and August were detected, saying this is an all-time high. This is the highest it's been since 2013. But what's angered many is the fact that these fires are started on purpose. And as mentioned, the main reason behind this is because of cattle farming. At the time of some of these fires, officials in the region were criticized as they said that this wasn't a big deal and that forest fires happen all the time and will continue to do so. Their environmental policies have been heavily criticized by millions across the globe. And people have been demanding for years that change needs to happen and that we need to preserve this rainforest. According to Brazil's National Institute for Space Research, although 2019 was the year that everyone spoke out about the Amazon fires, data shows us there was actually last year that the most recorded fires were detected in the region, with scientists now saying it's likely that 2021 will be the worst year for forest fires in the Amazon. Those working at the University of California who are observing the data from the rainforest have revealed that the Amazon is currently in extreme drought. Further reporting that Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology issued an emergency alert warning locals about this. One scientist revealed that many people are not aware of the fact that already this year they've detected over 17 major fires, and that it's likely that things will only get worse. What do you make of these recent fires in the Amazon rainforest? Hiking through the forest is an activity that's enjoyed by many. It's relaxing and it can make you appreciate the small things in life. In fact, Science Research and Daily Science announced that spending time outside is good for you, and that living close to nature has a wide range of health benefits. That's, of course, as long as you don't run into anything mysterious. For years now, stories have been told of mysterious creatures living in the dense forest regions of our planet, that every so often hikers come into contact with them. There's a variety of different locations that are said to house these mysterious creatures. North America has the well-known Bigfoot, a large bipedal humanoid that's allegedly been encountered by humans for thousands of years, while Indonesia has the orang pendek, a humanoid-looking creature that's said to resemble that of a prehistoric human. Recently, an individual on Reddit by the name of Ms. Robin Hood captured a mysterious photograph while hiking with their dog. They said that they often walk through this area with their dog, but that this time something seemed off. They managed to snap a photograph and post it online, noting that this thing was much taller than they were. They said the following: "It's strange because a couple of times while I've walked past this tree, I've seen something in the corner of my eye, and I look at the tree with a strange feeling, but yesterday it was different." Some who saw the image pointed out that the trees in the background looked strange, and suggested that the creature in the image was a Bigfoot, a creature that researchers have said bends and breaks branches. Others said this was a really clear photograph of something strange, and that this could be the real deal. As of right now, The original poster said they plan to go back and hope they can find out what this thing was. While many reports suggest the creatures are hostile, there's also numerous reports that suggest a more gentle nature. A vile stench is often said to precede them, as well as tree knocking, screams, or even revealing themselves briefly before vanishing. Despite giving human sons of their presence, they have still managed to evade human contact for thousands of years, ever since the first reported sightings. Though numerous signs are often reported before Bigfoot sightings, UFO phenomena is one of the most common. It's estimated that around 20% of all Bigfoot sightings coincide with unidentified flying objects. One account of a UFO in Bigfoot originates from 1888. This was a meeting between Cataranches and a group of Native Americans, and it happened in Northern California. The natives had described 3 crazy bears that came down from the sky, and this was in a small craft. The craft left the creatures in the woods before flying off. Another report was made by a woman, and this was in Ohio back in 1973. The mother and daughter were both asleep, when around midnight a beam of light came down from an umbrella-shaped craft. Upon seeing why the light was shining in the woods, they noticed grayish beings walking towards the beam. Within a short amount of time, both the beings and craft had disappeared. The Central Intelligence Agency also investigated a report of a Bigfoot in UFO. And this was at Pennsylvania, and it happened on July 31, 1966. The report was filed alongside thousands of other UFO reports as part of the infamous Project Bluebird. For tourists from New York were visiting the popular destination when the car became stuck in the sand after a day of relaxing on the beach. Gerald LeBeau was one of the 4 and was sent to call for a tow truck. The other 3 stayed in the car and waited for help until around 10 p.m. when a police patrol car stopped to see if the group were okay. The group were told that a tow truck was on the way, and so the police officers said they would call back within the hour to ensure that they'd managed to pull their car free. After approximately 35 minutes, the police returned, only to be told by one of the members that they just witnessed something strange hovering above the woods. The officers, along with Douglas Tibbetts, went out into the woods to investigate what they'd seen. The remaining 2 members of the group stayed with the car until the others returned. The officers and Tibbetts managed to walk roughly 300 yards from the car before they heard the car's horn, which caused them to turn around and hurry back to the car. As soon as they arrived, the 2 women who were left with the car were visibly shaken, claiming that they'd just witnessed a dark figure, larger than a man, with a big head and wide shoulders. No hands or face visible, and it appeared that its back was turned. The creature was also heard to be scratching the car's roof before one of the members had sounded the horn, which scared the creature away. Investigators later dismissed the reporters being a raccoon, but the witnesses were offended by this, stating that they know the difference between a raccoon and a large humanoid. Another mysterious creature is that of the orang pendek. The orang pendek is said to be a 2-legged ape that lives in the western islands of Indonesia. It's been cited by the locals around the island and also by foreign researchers. Orang pendek is Indonesian for the short one, and it's proposed to be a species of primates that has not yet been discovered, possibly belonging to the genus Homo. Over time, so many people have reported seeing the creature, including travelers, natives, and researchers, that many have gone looking for the cryptid or accidentally saw it by chance. Our appendix's most common features that have been confirmed by the many sightings include a standing height of 2 to 5 feet, moving on 2 legs like humans do, and having gray or golden brown fur. The strangest observation is that these creatures have facial features that are more human-like than monkeys, which has resulted in the belief that the orang pendek could be a distant long human cousin, possibly with a common ancestor. From what the locals of Indonesia say, the orang pendek has high intelligence and can hide from being detected while watching people, making them fear it for its clever nature. So what do you make of this interesting photograph? Recently, Yellowstone National Park has been very active. New data has shown us that not only is the swarm of earthquakes not slowing down, but that their magnitude is also increasing. The University of Utah's live tracking of earthquakes shows us that one of the most recent ones to hit Yellowstone came in at 3.1 in magnitude. This happened today, although the actual magnitude of this quake is currently being devised, with others saying that other earthquake pages recorded it as 3.4. This was detected in the caldera system. The worry here is that although Yellowstone does get hit by many earthquakes, there are specific regions in Yellowstone that are more fragile than others, which means there's the potential that if an earthquake hits one of these regions that are brittle, it could do a lot of damage. Some of the most recent earthquakes that have hit Yellowstone within the last few hours are a 1.4, a 1.5, a 2.2, a 0.3, a 1.1, a 1.4, and a 2.2. All relatively small earthquakes that don't present a threat. However, it's the increased magnitude quakes that are creating conversations. Mr. Heffler, who used to work at the United States Geological Survey, conducted many tests around Yellowstone. And one of the things he noted was that although earthquakes around the park were common, when they started to measure in a 2 or greater in magnitude, they would become concerned. This is the recorded graph that shows the 3.2 earthquake when it entered Yellowstone. One thing to remember is that going back several years ago, it was rare to see a magnitude 2 earthquake around Yellowstone, which is why previous employees have said that if they were detected around the park, they would become concerned. Recent data, though, has shown us that magnitude 3 and higher have started to hit the park, and this happened within the last year, meaning that when compared to previous data, there's been quite a large increase in magnitude. Some of these earthquakes are hitting the region known as West Thumb. As mentioned by the United States Geological Survey on their website, West Thumb is the largest geyser basin on the shores of Yellowstone Lake. The heat source of this hydrothermal feature in this location is thought to be relatively close to the surface, only 10,000 feet or 3,000 meters down. The West Thumb of Yellowstone Lake was formed by a large volcanic explosion that occurred approximately 150,000 years ago. The resulting collapsed volcano later filled with water, forming an extension of Yellowstone Lake. It's for this reason that some have expressed their concerns about the increased earthquake activity around this area. After all, it was only in the 1990s that researchers discovered hydrothermal features under the surface of the lake. Still, one of the most interesting things that has people talking is the comparisons of old fable. Photos were taken from a few months back, and they've been compared to recent ones, and it's obvious that there's a huge uplift. I added in some red lines, and it's obvious that something's going on here. The red lines show the uplift underneath old fable, and it's not like this is even subtle. There's an obvious uplifting that's going on beneath this area. But as online users have pointed out, there's been no comments from the United States Geological Survey. This isn't a recent thing either. These images were compared over the last few months, and you can definitely see that it's increased in size. Some have said that even if you're not worried about the swarm of earthquakes hitting Yellowstone, there's no denying that there's an obvious uplift going on beneath Old Faithful, saying that several people can clearly see that the ground has risen by several meters. Although the United States Geological Survey has said that these small tremors are common across Yellowstone National Park, others are more interested in the larger magnitude earthquakes that are being detected around the area, asking why this haven't been covered by park officials and news outlets. Grouse of Yellowstone, though, have shown us that after being hit by these earthquakes, it showed us that it did have some effect on the park as magma was seen moving. One of the reasons why this is happening could be the injection of magma underneath fracase basins, which can be found throughout Yellowstone, with officials saying that a few years back these uplifts would add height to their land masses. In fact, back in 2020, officials revealed that the region around Norriscase Basin is over 5 inches higher. And this is due to the magma underneath it. Although the United States Geological Survey is being quiet on this matter, it's obvious to locals and those who are watching the data that Yellowstone's activity is definitely increasing. Some users have said that we should only be worried when the animals start leaving, but wildlife watchers have said this has already started to happen. In the last year, animals living in Yellowstone have started migrating away. They've noticed that thousands of animals around Yellowstone have left for higher ground, with researchers saying that one of the reasons they might be doing this is because of environmental anomalies. Researchers at the University of California, Berkeley said the following: "These animals are migrating in the tens of thousands and are moving out of Yellowstone. We think this comes down to changes in the area. Those who are following the activity have said this is worrying, and that this could mean that something is about to happen, as animals can detect things before humans." As of right now, scientists are not entirely sure how animals are able to sense things like earthquakes, but one idea is that they sense the ionization of the air, which is caused by large rock pressures in earthquakes. Scientists have said they've observed wild animals leaving areas before an earthquake occurs, and that even pets have this instinct, as they've been seen acting on edge whenever a natural disaster happens. Given the fact that there's no real way to prepare or prevent an event like this, it could very well be a countdown clock for the end of the human race and life on Earth as we know it. Despite this, researchers are still working to devise ways of potentially releasing this trapped energy to prevent such a large event from taking place. But this will take funding and technology that's not available at the moment, and will be a part of one of the largest construction and development projects of the 21st century. So what do you make of these recent large earthquakes that hit Yellowstone? And what do you make of the increased activity? It's an event that many of us are aware of, the sinking of the unsinkable RMS Titanic. This tragedy occurred on April 15, 1912, during a voyage that was supposed to stretch from Southampton, England to New York City. RMS Titanic is one of the most famous ships still to this day. In 1912, it cost an estimated $7.5 million, roughly $400 million in today's money. Only 705 people escaped joining the ship's fate in the cold Atlantic waters. The survivors waited in the ocean on lifeboats, rafts, and debris, and this was for over an hour and a half before they were rescued by RMS Carpathia, the ship that picked up on the Titanic's distress signal. The other passengers, approximately 1,500 people, did not survive this disaster, particularly due to an inadequate number of lifeboats. Although the tragedy of the Titanic is widely known, many people are not aware of the lifeboat that was found floating in the ocean a month after the sinking. The wooden lifeboat was the last one to be sent into the cold waters. Unfortunately, though, it was found too late. It was spotted around 200 miles from the sinking of the Titanic, and this was by RMS Oceanic. This was on May 13, 1912. Those who went in for a closer look were met with a chilling sight. On the lifeboat were 2 firemen from the Titanic's engine room, and also a first-class passenger, who was able to be identified as Thompson Beatty. Thompson was still in his dinner jacket. All 3 of them had passed away. After searching the boat, crew members found a wedding ring engraved with Edward to Gerda. This is the only thing that was left of her husband and wife before they were claimed by the ocean. The recovery mission was detailed by first-hand accounts and photographs, and it's helped historians and researchers to build a picture as to what happened on that day. The lifeboat was able to be identified as Collapsible A, and it's said to have been the last lifeboat to leave the Titanic, with researchers going on to say that it would have left the ship at around 2:15 a.m. on the 15th of April. Historians were able to look back and find out information about some of the passengers. For example, Thomas Beatty, who was on the last lifeboat, left his native Canada in order to go and live in France. He never planned to go on the Titanic, but it was revealed that one of his friends fell ill, and this was while they were on a trip. So he decided to change plans. Being wealthy, Thompson was able to pay a premium, which allowed him to join some of the world's most successful individuals. He penned a chilling letter to his mother days before he was set to sail, saying the following: "We are changing ships and coming home in a new unsinkable boat." One of the passengers on the Oceanic who found the lifeboat wrote the following letter: "I crossed the Atlantic 1 month after the Titanic catastrophe. We picked up one of the lifeboats, with 2 unrecognizable corpses of a passenger in evening dress and 2 firemen. The arms came off in the hands of the Oceanic boarding officer. The bodies were buried in a prayer service read. The lifeboat then hauled onto our deck." End quote. New details are still coming forward about what happened on that day, and one that's captured people's attention is that of the alleged fire that happened on board the Titanic. Titanic survivor John Dealey revealed shortly after the disaster there had been a fire on the ship, and later research suggested it could have played a major role in the accident. John Dealey was born in London in 1883. He worked as a stoker and went aboard the Titanic to tend the furnace for a monthly wage. He and 11 other firemen were instructed to control the coal bunker fire that was burning in Boiler Room 6. Even though these types of fires are extremely difficult to manage. He recounted this experience to the Stevensport Journal 2 weeks after he survived the Titanic sinking. According to his report, the fire started in bunker number 6. There were hundreds of tons of coal stored there. The coal on top of the bunker was wet, as all of the coal should have been, but down at the bottom of the bunker the coal was dry. Coal at the bottom of the bunker took fire, and it smoldered for days. The wet coal on top kept the flames from coming through, but down in the bottom of the bunker the flames were raging. The stokers were beginning to get alarmed over it, but the officers told them to keep their mouths shut. They didn't want to alarm the passengers. According to Titanic expert Ray Boston, the coal fire on board the Titanic actually started during the speed trials, and this was 10 days before its scheduled departure. However, the Titanic still left Southampton with its passengers as planned. The ship's firemen were not able to get the fire under control during the trip, so they planned to empty the cold bunker after their arrival in New York and call in the help of firebones. Tragically, they never got this opportunity, and the iceberg would ultimately be the one to empty Bunker 6. The bunker was situated right above the largest hole the iceberg tore in the ship. But just because the iceberg did the final damage to the ship and directly caused its sinking, doesn't mean the fire on board didn't have an effect. The fire was estimated to be 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, and this was by Glamio Rain, a fire science expert at the Imperial College of London. Thanks to this intense heat from the fire, the hull of the ship, which includes bottom sides and deck, may have been damaged long before it struck the iceberg, making it more vulnerable and susceptible to more destruction. Irish journalist Zainan Monali, who studied the Titanic for over 30 years, found evidence of this through his investigations, and this was of photographs taken of the ship before it even began its journey. He discovered 30-foot-long black marks on the hull, right at the spot that would eventually be impacted by the iceberg. Engineers at the Imperial College of London were able to connect the mock to the raging coal fire. Another way the fire may have escalated the collision was through its influence on the ship's speed. The Titanic was operating at full pace when it hit the iceberg, above the recommendations for the conditions. Stokers may have been shoveling as much coal as possible into the furnace to fight the fire, which could have caused the engines to work harder, leading to the increase in speed. The extra momentum would have made evading the iceberg more difficult, and it also would have increased the force of the impact. The fire may have also sped up the sinking process. Even though the iceberg struck the hull, the Titanic designer who was aboard the ship believed the bulkhead, the protective wall inside the hull, would hold the water back. However, the bulkhead had been damaged in the fire, which may have shortened the time it took for the water to flood in. While it's likely that the iceberg would have sunk the ship regardless, it's probable that with less fire damage to the bulkhead, it would have held up for longer. So what do you make of these Titanic discoveries?